It is Y105, Dubuque's #1 hit music station. My name is Steve Pulaski, and my next guest is a former flight attendant turned New York Times bestselling author. Her first two books, Falling and Drowning, The Rescue of Flight 1421, have been optioned as major motion pictures. Meanwhile, her third novel, Worst Case Scenario, recently became available wherever you get your books. She is author TJ Newman. How are you today, TJ?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
I appreciate you making the time, TJ. Your first novel, Falling, was a runaway success, but tell people, how many times was it rejected by agents?
41 back-to-back rejections. No one wanted to touch a book by an unpublished flight attendant without a platform. My 42nd agent submission was my one and only yes.
What did that book success out of the gate mean for you and tell you about your work?
God, that's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question quite like that. It meant validation that big dreams could come true. I mean, my first dream that I pursued before becoming a published author was to be an actress. I got a degree in musical theater, then moved to New York, and well, since we're not talking about what my next Broadway show is, you can assume how well that went. It was nonstop rejection, nonstop failure, and I finally, after a few years, had to leave. And so when this dream came true, after all the work, after years of writing and years of bad drafts and, trying to get my work where it needed to be, and then round after round after round of rejection from agents, which felt like, my experience in New York all over again, when it hit, when things actually started to go right, when doors started to open, it felt surreal, for one. I mean, it took me a long time to accept that, the success was actually coming, but it felt like validation for me and for, honestly, my friends and every other dreamer out there who has a dream and wants to do something big that is, the odds are stacked against you. It felt validating to know it is possible. Dreams can come true. It may take a while. It may hurt. It may not be pretty, but it is possible.
Fast forward, TJ, you're on your third novel. Congratulations. What is Worst Case Scenario all about?
Worst Case Scenario is about the aftermath of a commercial airliner crashing into a nuclear power plant. The title of the book is appropriate. It is sincerely the worst case scenario that I could come up with, and doing the research for the book, frankly, it terrified me. I almost didn't write the book because I found the research so alarmingly terrifying of not just what could happen if something like this did happen, but how possible it was. It's a very plausible scenario, an extremely plausible scenario. The book is set in a small town in rural Minnesota, and it's not about the plane crash. It's not exactly a spoiler to say that by the end of the fifth page, the plane is crashed. It's about what happens next. It's about being on the ground in this small community and seeing them come together and work together to rise to the moment. My books, all three of my books are standalone novels. They have no relation to each other, but they do have a theme that is consistent, and that's everyday people in extraordinary circumstances. And when tragedy hits, that's who it often happens to. A plane crash doesn't happen to a group of Navy SEALs. It happens to just the people on the ground and, firefighters, teachers, engineers, mailmen, like just everyday people like you and me. How do they respond to these extreme moments? And I love looking at the human condition, the human spirit in those moments and seeing what they do.
All three of these books involve airplanes and travel. You're a former flight attendant, as I mentioned earlier, TJ. How did that line of work inspire your writing career?
Oh, hugely. I mean, I flew for 10 years. I had the idea for my first book on the plane and wrote much of that book by hand in the forward galley on red-eye flights while my passengers slept. it completely shaped, I've got a big imagination. I sort of look at the world through the eyes of a storyteller anyway, but you put that kind of imagination and creativity into an environment every single day where, you got a bunch of strangers thrown together in a contained environment. There's going to be drama. There's going to be some sort of, inciting incident, whether or not it's, the kid kicking your chair behind you or, a mechanical issue. Like, there's going to be some sort of drama. So how do the people react in that? And I think being in that environment every day and seeing everything from the tiny little stuff to the big stuff happen and seeing people respond to it, that's sort of what sparks my fascination of, okay, it's us on this plane. Like, if something happens, how are we going to respond? We can't call for help. We can't call for backup up here. It's going to be us. So who's going to be the hero? Who's going to be the coward? Who's going to be the comedic relief? It's all of those questions sort of shaped how I started just engaging with that environment every single day. And that's when the stories started, story ideas started coming.
Your books Falling and Drowning really incited a bidding war between rival Hollywood studios that had to be kind of entertaining to watch from afar. Tell me, though, who is your dream actor or actress in either of these movies?
Oh, that's such a hard question for me to answer. I gotta say, it's sort of like I tell people, it's kind of like asking a parent to describe what their child would be like if it wasn't their child, right? Like, I've already cast the movies in my head. They're the characters that I came up with while I was writing them. I know exactly what these characters look like and talk like and how they are, but it's not Harrison Ford. You know what I mean? It's like I already cast them with the characters that I created. So just the fact that these books are going to be made into movies is unbelievable to me, and I can't, frankly, wait to see what a casting director comes up with and who they would put into these characters that, I already know them. They're fictitious characters in my mind, but I know exactly what they look like and who they are, so I'm just looking forward to seeing who a casting director says, yeah, and this is the real person that's going to play that.
She is author TJ Newman. TJ, I want to give you the final word to promote Worst Case Scenario, your website, social media. Where can people find you, stay up to date with you? The floor is yours.
Thank you. The Worst Case Scenario is my latest novel. You can find it anywhere books are sold, and it hit the New York Times bestseller list, so I'm extremely proud of what that one is doing. You can find all the details for all my socials and buying the books on tjnewmanauthor.com. tjnewmanauthor.com. She is author TJ Newman. Congratulations on all your success, TJ. I wish you nothing but continued success. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for yours as well.